Welcome to First Unitarian Society of Minneapolis, the birthplace of Congregational Humanism. We carry on that tradition of free thought today, dedicated to promoting a free search for truth, meaning, and justice. Our web address is firstunitarian.org. I'm David Breeden, Senior Minister. Welcome. Some of you know that my wife and I are big fans of Latin American culture. She spent 3 years in the Dominican Republic, and I spent 15 years teaching in Central Mexico, one semester of a year. So we both kind of get into Spanish culture anytime we can and listen to the music and I try to speak the language. My wife can speak the language. Dear, would you stand up so people can see? So we're wearing T-shirts today that we ran into at a group that we love is Salsa del Sol, and it says, for those of you who don't speak Spanish, yo no creo en fronteras. So, yo, not I, right? Don't. Creo is where we get the English word creed, right? So creo, I believe, in fronteras, which is kind of a false cognate in English, because in English, frontiers are, the new frontier, in yippee-ki-yi-yo, frontier, whereas in most European languages, frontier only means border. So I don't believe in borders. Now, that's interesting. What do you mean by that? And that's kind of what I want to be thinking about today. I mean, no, you can't take down borders, or can we? That's an interesting question. Maybe it's an ideal, or maybe we just haven't tried it. In a few moments, we will be seeing our FUS version of the legend known in English-speaking countries as stone soup. The story of stone soup is best known here in the U.S. from a 1947 book by the American writer and illustrator Marcia Brown. Most of you saw that when you were a little kid. But the tale is very old, with versions occurring in Native American tradition, Chinese, Scandinavian, Eastern European, and Portuguese versions with titles such as nail soup, speaker zupa, axe soup, button soup, wood soup, pebble soup, and the list goes on. I thought I was being very clever when I translated stone soup into Spanish sopa de piedra. But upon a bit of research, I discovered that sopa da pedra is a Portuguese version of this tale, and restaurants in the vicinity of Almarin, Portugal, serve stone soup, commemorating a monk who came to town in the Middle Ages and did just as the story indicates. And there's even a bronze statue of the monk in Portugal sitting in front of his pot of soup. The structure of the tale always involves a hungry wanderer or wanderers who come into a village. The villagers are unwilling to share their food, so the wanderer tricks them into sharing by cooking something inedible: nails, buttons, wood, an axe, stones, something that's not all that delicious. But it is gluten-free, right? Put that on the packaging. Curiosity gets the better of the villagers, and so they share ingredients until the soup becomes hearty and delicious. Interestingly, different spins on the tale lead to different kinds of morals for the story. In some tellings, the cleverness of the wanderer is emphasized, and he begins to look like kind of a con artist. In other versions, like the version we will be doing today, the moral is that an attitude of optimism and plenty is better for everyone than a scarcity mentality. The stone soup trope exists outside the realm of folk tales. For example, a famous scene from the writings of Mark Twain has his character Tom Sawyer convincing his friends to paint a fence by pretending it's lots of fun. Some theologians claim that the miracle of the loaves and fishes reported in Christian scripture is a stone soup trope. The scenario was that Jesus had been preaching way too long, and everybody was getting hungry. The disciples decided that they would send everybody home, because they didn't have a Tracy Yu to cook up a mini meal for them. They would have to cancel the noon programming. Then Jesus said, "Hey, here's some food." And guess what? Everyone had packed up a picnic lunch, but they'd been holding out because they were nervous, but that they were the only ones with food. Jesus got them sharing, and by golly, they had enough food to go around. And the noon programming was saved. One of the reasons I became a humanist many years ago is a phrase in the first Humanist Manifesto, quote, "The goal of humanism is a free and universal society in which people voluntarily and intelligently cooperate for the common good of all. Humanists demand a shared life in a shared world." End quote. Sharing life and sharing the world may appear at first to be just idealistic and an unobtainable goal. Yeah, there are some reasons not to share. And yes, there are reasons at times that we can't share. The stone soup narrative pares the question down to its essence. Even though there are always lots of reasons not to share, says the tale, sharing is the most noble of human emotions. We want to share. We want things to be fair and equitable. We often don't agree concerning how to achieve fairness and equity, yet deep down, each of us wishes for that. Being human is about longing to share a life in a shared world. Politics and ideologies get in the way, yet still some of us have a sense of fairness and a sense of curiosity and a sense of sharing, and that's the way we want our world to go. Scarcity or abundance. In the song Magic Penny, we hear, "Love is something if you give it away, you end up having more." But what about difficult realities? What about the politics of love? As theologian Cornel West says, quote, "Justice is what love looks like in public." So, what's this public love justice? I think it's clear that for humanists, sharing is a moral imperative. After all, our origin story says that human beings are primates, that we evolved along with the other animals, and we are 100% the stuff of the Big Bang and the stars, hydrogen, helium, and on, as is the earth and the planets and our fellow animals. Stone soup shows us that it takes a village, but care and sacrifice can lead to a wonderful moment of togetherness if you go that extra mile. Consider, open source software. Think about it a moment. Linux is a good example. Starting with one bit of code, people started adding, critiquing, changing, and now open source software is the primary way that human beings interact with technology. Open source is very humanist. It is about building a shared life in a shared world. When we join together, good things can happen. Might single-payer health care be like stone soup? We don't know. Might affordable child care be like stone soup? We don't know. Might a universal basic wage be like stone soup? Maybe we could find out. Yet, aren't some resources really and truly finite resources? Let's be real. What about our planet and our environment? Might we be able to use it up? In order to feed more people soup, do we throw the Amazon rainforest into the soup pot? Do we throw the boundary waters into the soup pot? Do we throw tribal lands into the soup pot? The ecological theologian David Barr sums up the question well, I think. Quote, If much of our impact on nature emerges from the pursuit of real human goods, it follows that our impact results not just from what we do wrong, greed, misogyny, imperialism, etc., but also from what we do right, end quote. The United States and European nations have plenty of soup at the moment, but what about the world's resources that belong to poor nations, vulnerable to industries with lots and lots of money? Who decides? Borders are, after all, about power. For the moment, many nations have plenty of soup, but how many people can each nation allow in when jobs are limited, housing is limited, and, what about health care and support for those who cannot care for themselves? And what about retirement? A shared life in a shared world is, I would say, certainly a moral imperative. But how to share becomes a political question, a question of borders. I've been looking at the soup from the standpoint of humanity, but what about looking at things from a non-anthropocentric point of view, a point of view of the animals and the plants and the trees and the water? The first Humanist Manifesto from back in 1933 that I admired so much focused on human needs. The most recent Humanist Manifesto from 2003 has this to say, quote, "Humans are an integral part of nature, the result of unguided evolutionary change. Humanists recognize nature as self-existing. We accept our life as all and enough, distinguishing things as they are from things we might wish and imagine them to be. We welcome the challenges of the future and are drawn to and undaunted by the yet-to-be known," end quote. There's an implication to thinking as humanists do. We must realize that we are an integral part of nature. Integral, right? That means that we human beings are nature, period. We are nature. And so are the rabbits and the birds and the waters and the air, everything, including us and including everything. We accept our life as all and enough, says the Humanist Manifesto, distinguishing things as they are from the things as we might wish or imagine them to be. Are we more special than the other animals is a good question. Do we get to throw other animals into the soup pot? And why should we be able to do that? And these are good questions, and I don't know the answers, but good questions are always a first step. And remember, the manifesto ends this way. We welcome the challenges of the future and are drawn to and undaunted by the yet-to-be known. It's difficult sometimes to welcome those challenges of the future. Those challenges look really, really big. Yet we insist that we are drawn to and undaunted by the yet-to-be known. It always has, and it always will be, a very basic question: what goes into the soup? Thanks for listening. You can find much more about humanism and what's happening at First Unitarian Society in Minneapolis by visiting our website at firstunitarian.org.